I am Mike Hamlet, the USCIS Industry Liaison, and welcome to our third quarter conference call with industry. As you may know, these calls were established back in 2018 with the purpose of having regular engagement with our industry partners and to provide a means to communicate with you procurement-related activity at USCIS. We hope these calls have been of some value to you, and we appreciate you and we encourage you for your participation. I want to emphasize that these calls are not industry days. Industry days will be announced through the appropriate venues as applicable, but if we have any upcoming events, we will announce them to you during these calls. Today's event has been recorded as previously stated. A YouTube link will be provided to the SAM.gov announcement when available. The announcement for these calls are posted on SAM.gov. Since we are transitioning to Teams, Microsoft Teams webinars for this call, the announcement will now have a Microsoft Teams link where you can do a self-registration to participate. So please read the announcement in its entirety. Everything you need to participate is provided in the announcement. As these calls are now a standard event, they will be held during the first month of each quarter, the last Tuesday of the month at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, unless otherwise noted, as with today. So just be aware that we could change the date, but we're trying to stick to a standard schedule. Also, the schedule for the calls are provided within the slides and also part of the announcement. If you're looking for the announcement in SAM.gov, remember that I'm using a standard notice ID string where only the fiscal year and the quarter characters will change. My goal is to post the announcement by the first of the month to provide awareness to you, then post the presentation later in the month, usually by the 15th, to allow you enough time to review the slide and submit questions in advance. When checking for updates to the announcement, make sure you click on the Show Recent Action in the blue text box on the announcement. We are briefing from updated slide version 1.1, which were posted on SAM.gov on April 18th. If you do not have this version, please take a moment to go to SAM to download the latest slides, to follow along. We are working on finding a means to provide the slides to you through Teams as well. For today, our agenda includes a program overview. We will have a member of the Office of Information Technology presenting Biz Ops to you. We have some remarks from the Office of Contracting, a few words from our small business specialist, a couple of items from me, the industry liaison, and then our executing division will present their portfolio. They will be sharing with you the most recent information on our requirements. Hopefully they are of interest to you. In some cases, the APFS number have been identified to reflect changes, but may not be reflected on the side. Throughout the presentation, we have cross-referenced our requirements by the APFS number and the solicitation number where applicable to aid you in tracking your opportunity of interest. As I normally do, I want to read this disclaimer. The content herein is for planning purposes only and does not constitute a pre-solicitation notice, an invitation for bid, or request for proposal, in accordance with FAR 52.215-3. There is no obligation by the government to purchase the products or services within this presentation unless a formal solicitation or invitation for bid is issued and an order or contract is awarded. All planned procurement are subject to revision and or cancellation. Any requirement that is currently in an active solicitation or under source selection will not be further discussed and questions shall be addressed to the contracting officer. Next slide, please. It is our purpose to provide you, industry, with the latest and most accurate information possible during these calls. However, we recognize that sometimes errors are made. To minimize and to correct any errors, USCIS will collect all questions during the call, review them, and provide the responses to all questions during the call, and we will post our responses on SAM.gov. Those responses will supersede any previous responses made during the call. Next slide. So today's agenda is already presented to you. We will start with some remarks from our guest speaker, and then move through the agenda, and hopefully we get some Q&As from you. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to our guest speaker for today, Tom. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Tom, and the rest of you can come off camera now.
Thank you, Mike, for the opportunity to be here. I really appreciated participating in these events, highlighted them to folks when I was on the vendor community. And I just switched into this role back in last August. Next slide, please. As Mike said, my name's Tom Dumichel. I'm the chief of a newly formed business operations organization within the Office of Information Technology. I'm going to give you an overview and some of our key focus areas that I'm focused on, so we can make industry aware of some of the things that OIT is looking at related to do our internal management and working with industry. Next slide, please. Business operations was created at the beginning of FY24, and it's part of the OIT front office, and it's under the Deputy CIO for Delivery, David Blair. I'm one of the peers of all the other delivery divisions under that organization. And this is a renewed approach to address challenges of aligning business priorities with the IT solutions. So primarily, this is a decision support function. We're focused on bridging the gap between technology and the business strategies. And we need to make sure we're aligning the organizational priorities with the effective day-to-day operations of USCIS. So we're producing a lot of data-driven insights to enhance our technology delivery and making sure that we're meeting the goals of USCIS. Next slide, please. So BizOps is supporting OIT's mission by really looking at improving productivity through cost optimization and initiatives through organizational process improvements. There's a couple of those examples I'm going to talk about later in the presentation. So we're looking at this data and turning these trends into strategies to help make a decision-making framework both for the divisions and OIT leadership as a whole. The biggest focus is going to be bringing financial visibility and accountability to the project and product delivery model. It's important that we become more mindful and alert about cost drivers and the dependencies that IT PMs can best manage your resources. So my group is working with the IT PMs and the resource management staff across the divisions and in the OIT front office to make this a more regular part of the management activity and part of all the reporting cycles internally and all the way up through our congressional reporting. Next slide, please. So we're focused on the value, right? Making sure that these priorities that we're building the things that the agency needs. And this renewed effort on this financial visibility includes both the product and service delivery contracts to make sure that we are getting the best value out of both of those types of procurements. So related to software, I think one of the examples that Mike alluded to here is we switched to this new MS Teams platform. We had been on a different platform, but the agency had made that strategic decision to switch to MS Teams. So we actually are helping encourage transition to those things where we have duplicative software packages to make sure we're sticking to what that decision has been. So that was actually a very fortuitous type of engagement that Mike and I had when we were having that conversation. We also want to focus that we're ensuring on not having too many excessively unused licenses. If we're spending money on software that we're not actually using, that's just kind of wasteful, right? So we know we need some amount of buffer, but we really want to make sure that the software that we're paying for is still needed and all the licenses that we have are actually being utilized. And if we need more, we make sure we buy what we need, because sometimes it goes the other extreme that we actually are overextending those areas, and we need to stay on top of that as well so we can actually pay for the resources that we're using. When it comes to support providers, we want to make sure that the teams that are doing software delivery are actually focused on those highest priority activities. This is the primary responsibility of the IT PMs, of course, and the cores and everybody that's part of that contract. But I think it's important that we tell industry that there's a lot of focus from the top down to making sure we're making the best use of those delivery vehicles that we have to make sure that we're completely aligned with what the agency needs to deliver. This also requires that the vendors are working in a collaborative, supportive method with other vendors. This is pretty common for some of you, but it may be kind of foreign to others. In this environment, we're a very highly collaborative and cooperative environment across all of OIT. We need to avoid siloed delivery. Holding information close so that somebody else can't benefit from it is really not an acceptable practice here in USCIS and especially OIT. So sometimes you're going to work for another group's success, but that's for the agency's success, and that really is what's most important here. We are all here to serve the mission of the agency. The term stewardship is something that I am frequently turning to use within the language here in USCIS. It's a little different than just IT project management, because I think the emphasis on stewardship is making sure that we're focused on managing those resources we have. It's just actually not given my budget, I'm just going to go do this. Are we actually trying to do that to the greatest extent possible? And ensuring those resources are used and we're actually meeting those needs. So just a little different slant. And this conversation is, strongly directed by both David Blair and our CIO, Bill McElhaney. So this is just a little different vision of how we're trying to change some of the mindset across the agency for our IT delivery. Next slide, please. So one of the projects that initiatives we're working on is refining the acquisition efforts for OIT goods and services. OIT and OCON are working together to standardize an approach on how these procurements are done. This has actually been some things that I think industry has actually mentioned to both OCON and OIT, help us to help you get better procurements in. So we're trying to find a way to create things more consistent and repeatable if we're going to be buying the same thing over and over again. So the benefit to this, obviously, it saves OIT and OCON time in developing these procurement packages. It actually helps ensure that we're getting qualified, experienced vendors to meet the needs of these projects. And we can actually evolve this process based on each time we use this and improve it with lessons learned, and also introduce new policy and procedures as they come about. And if we stick to this process, hopefully industry knows better what to expect, so you can actually better team and prepare your quotes, and actually better prepare your companies and your staff to actually deliver on these requirements for us. Another initiative that OIT and OCON are working on is we're trying to reduce the changes identified in the procurement strategies. So what does this mean? So, throughout the procurement cycle, after the market research is done and a certain vehicle has been identified, sometimes in the past, there might have been an opportunity to switch to a new strategic sourcing vehicle where DHS mandates something or something else comes out of the blue. At a certain point in the procurement process, there will be a time that vehicle is identified, even if there is a pending award for another vehicle. We're trying to get an agreement to the greatest extent possible is not to switch to a vehicle that is going to be awarded, even if it is something that would be more advantageous to the government or strategic sourcing, for instance, because it creates a lot of turmoil both inside OIT and industry. It also mitigates the risk and the dependencies on using those sources. So if we have to plan everything on a vehicle that isn't quite ready to handle our procurement needs, then we can kind of stick to our vehicle and ride it all the way to award. So again, that's all based on the decisions by OCON, but it is at least an awareness that we're trying to minimize those changes, because you can understand switching vehicles can be extreme upheaval to industry especially. Next slide, please. So USCIS OIT is really recognizes this is all about building relationships. So we need strong vendors to deliver the goods and services that we need to do our mission. We can't do it alone. That's why we have this relationship with industry. But we want to be clear, this is not a place where vendors should learn what they proposed. We have a tremendous cadre of experienced, qualified vendors who do great work. And we welcome for you to join the team and put your proposals in, but we need you to deliver when you get here. Winning is not the hardest part of OIT delivery. You actually need to come in, hit the ground running, transition in, and get the work done. And we got to show value shortest time possible. So when you're putting those proposals together and you're putting those teams together, make sure you can actually deliver what you're proposing. three of the biggest things that are important to us and critical, should be critical to every vendor, is your vetting, staffing, and the management of your delivery, right? We're focused on the outcomes, not just outputs of each of these contracts. We need you to staff accordingly. We need you to find people that are willing to actually come in and actually make a difference, right? How are they going to improve our mission? How is your company going to make us achieve the needs of the agency in measurable ways? How are you, strongly recommend that your staff learn about what our agency's mission is. And I find that people who know what part that they're doing to contribute to the whole of the mission, it's actually a better work, and they can actually deliver that work a lot more in a meaningful way than just showing up, writing some code, writing some requirements, and kind of moving along. So I think that's important, that you lead your teams in a way to make sure that they're actually part of this overall mission. And just to close out, it says we really are looking forward to build relationships with vendors and work together to meet the requirements and the current and evolving needs of the agency. We always have more things that are coming, and we need to be able to evolve to those needs as well as meet our current requirements. So we look forward to working with you in the future and seeing you respond to our upcoming procurements. Next slide. Thank you, Mike.
Tom, are you interested in receiving any questions from industry?
Sure, I have a little time.
Industry, if you have any questions, raise your hands and one of us will take you off mute, and please ask your question, or you can put a question in the chat box. Okay, so far I don't see any hand being raised or any question in the chat box. Again, if you have any questions for Tom, he didn't provide a contact information, but you can email me and I'll forward your questions or comments to Tom for response. Tom, thank you for joining us today. And at this time, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Michelle Redding, new addition to the OCON. So I'll let her introduce herself. And so take it away, Michelle.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our third quarter industry call with the Office of Contracting in our program offices. I am Michelle Redding. I'm deputy to Amanda Duquette, our HCA, and I serve as the chief of the contracting office. I am actually new to USCIS and DHS. I come to you guys from my previous experience has been at the Department of Justice and the Internal Revenue Service, Department of Treasury. We are very excited to host this meeting for the first time on the Teams platform. So this will give us more engagement and dialogue with industry. We've been looking forward to sharing this time with you and exchanging the information to hold more meaningful competitions and engagements. Meetings like this are very important to obtain a better process and hear the concerns of industry. I wanted to give a reminder out, and I'm sure you're going to get another reminder down in the slides about our in-person industry day. That will be on June 11th in Camp Springs. We're really looking forward to meeting you guys, discussing any concerns, any different ways that we could do the processes in a better manner, and exchange different information that is upcoming that we're allowed to exchange, obviously. Please make sure you register. It'll be in sam.gov. I'm sure there will be a link. Mike's going to talk about it a little bit more in the meeting. But please make sure you register for it. We're looking forward to seeing everyone. If there are any questions, I would love to entertain them now or at the end. Any questions or anything for me?
Again, if you have any questions, you can either put them in the chat box or raise your hand. We did have a few questions that came in after Tom went offline, but what we'll do is see if we have any question for Michelle first, and Tom is still there. We'll bring him back and ask a few questions of him. So any questions for Michelle? So the question is, will that industry vendor engagement day in June be in person?
Yes.
And I would expound on that one when I get to my slide later as well. Can you give any indication of the timing for the June 11 meeting? I'll try to answer that one, Michelle, if you don't mind. It's going to be an all-day event. We plan to hold it in person and virtually, so stand by for more information. When do you expect to post registration information for June 11th? Getting a little ahead and still in my thunder. We plan to finalize the event, or at least finalize making the announcement to include the registration process, hopefully by the end of the first week in May. So we will be updating the current announcement with that information for you. We plan, again, to do this in person and virtually, as we did with the Falcon event, if you were part of that. So stand by. Is there any in-person industry day coming in DC, Maryland? I'll address that question when I get to my slide. I know a couple. So any other question for Michelle and Office of Contracting in general? Okay. All right, with that, we're going to turn back to Tom. Thanks for sticking around, Tom. And let me find the questions.
Hey, Mike, I have them ready.
Go ahead, Danielle.
Sure, thank you. So the first question is, could you provide suggestions to build a relationship with OIT? Are you taking meetings?
So OIT generally does take meetings. Meeting with me may or may not get you what you want necessarily. I would recommend reaching out to the delivery divisions for the types of activities that you're looking to provide. So if you're looking for engineering, infrastructure, field services, there's that side of the house under Rob McMullen. If you're looking for software delivery and support services, that's under the David Blair side of the house in those divisions. If you're interested in security products, we actually had a vendor meet us at the DHS conversation. He had a software product he wanted to talk to our security team. So we connected him with our ISD division, and they have an R&D group, and he made a presentation to them. If you're looking for innovative technologies, things especially around AI or RPA or any of our really high-tech kind of innovation area, that's under our CTO and Advanced Technologies division. So I would recommend that looking into each of those groups and having a target. I know Mike receives a lot of inquiries from industry, and he passes them through. It's like, I'm looking for this. So just I think we worked out really well to provide that targeted recommendation for the person we met at the DHS conversation. So we want to make sure we connect the vendors with the right group, because not everybody does everything.
Thank you. The next question is, does USCIS contemplate adding metrics to contracts that align to what Tom has presented?
So I don't think there's a direct correlation for things that I have in my business metrics versus what the contract metrics are. I would say that the vendor metrics, there already is some alignment, like certain contract metrics have staffing requirements, right? You need to have a certain amount of staff on the contract, right? That goes towards making sure that we're getting value for that delivery. I think some vendors also have to report on how many licenses we're using and how many unused licenses there are. I know other vendors are already showing our usability for certain services, and again, what those costs are. So that is information that is provided currently by some vendors to the IT PMs up through the division chiefs and to the deputy CIOs and to business operations. So we're already kind of leveraging that information that's there. So some of it is there around cost, schedule, and performance. In fact, some of it's more detailed than even that I would use, right? So, but I don't expect there to be anything significantly changing on the contract metrics. But scorecards, are evolving and expanding a long time on these delivery vehicles. So I think they're going to improve as we get more lessons learned from the contract.
Thank you. There was another question about meetings, which you answered that, we try to connect you with the program office or division that's really knowledgeable on that specific requirement. So feel free to reach out to us and we can, make that connection and help facilitate that meeting. Another question.
And my email address my email address is in the slides on the last page. So that's, people can feel free to contact me and I'll try to help facilitate that if I can. But don't ever hesitate to reach out to Mike and his team because they're on top of this as well. Sorry.
Thank you. No worries. Next question. Do vendors need to obtain a security clearance to pursue opportunities to work with USCIS?
It was a little mind. The question is security clearance. If that was my answer, no. But all vendors have resources. They have to be based in the United States, and I believe OS requires that every contract staff person is a U.S. citizen. Some contracts require a clearance, but for the most part, it's the DHS suitability. But U.S. citizenship I think is something that is required on every clearance we have.
Tom, it appears that some of your audio is garbled. If you don't mind, just for clarification, repeat that response.
I'm going to go off camera. Is that better?
Yes, that seemed to be better.
I think it was my bandwidth. Okay. The question was around the requirement for security clearance.
Correct.
Yes.
So, okay, in order to do business with the USCIS, companies do not require a security clearance or facility clearance unless there's a specific procurement opportunity that does require classified work. All companies need to be based in the United States, and all employees working on the contract need to be U.S. citizens. I believe that's a requirement by OSI, and that would be in each procurement. But the assumption should be that everybody has to be a U.S. citizen that works.
Thank you. Another question is, will you share the organization slash division POC and email addresses? So I'm not sure if this is something that we have readily available, Tom, but if not, we can always, like I said, help facilitate that and get you in the right direction. But Tom, do you have more to share on that?
I will defer to my leadership on how much they want to push that out there. But I think on a case-by-case basis, we can make those connections, but I don't know if they actually advertise the USCIS org chart and connection contact information, but it's always best to work through the Office of Contracting to make those connections, and we can facilitate that.
Thank you so much. And I believe that is all that you have for questions in the chat. So thank you so much for your time today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
It looks like we do have some hand raised actually. So Heather, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, good afternoon, Andrew. I have activated your microphone, so you should be able to come off mute to ask your question.
Thank you very much, Heather. Hi, Tom. It's good to see you. Quick question. As you guys, as the organization priorities change, which happens on a frequent basis at USCIS, I was wondering, how do you adjust the daily operations and delivery to align those priorities? Do you guys do surges, or how do you handle those rapid changes?
So that's a very good question, because it is pretty much the common practice throughout USCIS. If anybody's been keeping up on the news, our world has been pretty chaotic ever since the withdrawal from Afghanistan. There has been a constant bit of churn going on with international population and things, all the way down to the southern border. So we can only pivot to those demands with the resources we have, because the turnaround times are usually very quick, which means we have to reprioritize work that's already in progress. We can, look to build up extra capacity, but there really isn't a concept of surge resources, because if we have people who are cleared and ready to go, we're going to put them to work because we have plenty of things to do. So it is a constant conversation that OIT leadership is having, and the business is saying, hey, I've got more requirements, but we still keep getting, pushed to the side by these things that come out of either Congress or the White House or things from the front office of the agency. And they're, they take priority when it's required. So it is a constant battle, but for the short answer, we always have to adjust what we're currently doing and divide and conquer.
With the staff that you have.
Yep. Because,
Gotcha.
I mean, face it, from the time, anybody who has a contract here, it takes a while to get, staff through a clearance process, and the more you can actually do, and go back to the staffing point, if you're actually doing security screenings on your staff and making sure that you're not putting people forward who are not clearable, that'll actually help everybody in the long run. It doesn't necessarily help you get through the security process, but one of the struggles that we've all been facing here is getting contract staff cleared, but we also have a huge amount of staff that they're trying to hire in the federal staff to support the southern border. So OSI only has so many people they can work on these things. So whatever that highest priority is, it all ripples through. But that being said, you activate a team on a contract, you've got to get the team recruited, you got to get them cleared, and you got to get them up to speed. So it's months before teams can actually be really effective. It's not a pivot. So a lot of these things are kind of up and down in the matter of a few months. So we'd never be able to have resources stood up to hit some of these crises.
Gotcha. What a challenge. Thank you.
Yeah. It's never dull here. It's so.
Nope.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you.
Okay, that looks like it for the hands raised, Mike.
Okay, great. Looked like there was one last question in the chat box. Is that correct, Danielle?
Yeah, so there was one question here, and it looks like Monica addressed it. Michelle, I don't know if if there's any more information you want to add, but the question is, will USCIS strategically source through GSA more often? Monica responded with this tidbit: market research determines the contract vehicle based on the requirement and available strategic source vehicle. So it depends at the time and requirement. Michelle, I don't know if there's anything that you want to add.
No, I agree with that response. Everyone is different. Every action that we have is different, and it is dictated on the market research.
Okay. Well, at this time, I want to thank both our guests, Michelle and Tom, as we start to move into other topics here. So I'll turn it over to Danielle with something from our small business specialist.
Thank you, Mike. Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining today's call. I am Danielle Hubbard, and I am the Small Business Specialist for USCIS. Today, I wanted to share a snapshot of our FY24 small business goals, as well as our current achievement towards those goals. I did see a question in the chat around HubZone, so that information you can see here on the slide. I do want to note that since the time these slides were posted, the goals have actually now been finalized. So although it says unofficial, those are now our official goals for the year. And as you can see, our COs have been working very hard to support the small business programs, and we are currently exceeding all goals. However, with that being said, based on our projections for the year, we are still needing to identify opportunities for set-asides that will help contribute to our small disadvantaged business, or SDB, goal, which has increased quite a bit compared to previous fiscal years, as it has, government-wide. Also on the slide, I wanted to provide my contact information, and as well as Heather's. She is the alternate SBS. So please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions or concerns related to small business matters, and we'd be happy to assist. That's what we're here for. So thank you all.
Okay, thank you, Danielle. Yes, now a few remarks from me. Next slide, please. As the industry liaison, I just want to keep you industry abreast of what's happening here. We already talked about the USCIS Industry Day that we are planning to host on June 11th. As previously stated, we're planning to do an all-day event. We plan to include as much networking as possible, so we'll be encouraging our program officers to come on down and meet you, since we probably haven't seen each other in a number of years. So we plan to maximize that physical contact as much as we can, as well as the fact that we will be doing this virtually. So you don't have to be in the DC area to participate. And if you've participated in the Falcon Industry Day back in September, it's going to be similar to that format. So stand by for more information. Also, another opportunity for you the next day, we're going to be at the Washington Convention Center for the 33rd Government Procurement Conference. So this is usually a industry-wide or a federal government-wide event with industry. So there'll be some matchmaking opportunities. I'll be doing matchmaking in the morning, and my good partner in crime, Monica Harris on OIT, she would be doing matchmaking in the afternoon. So a good opportunity for those of you who have not physically met us, come on in and get at least 15 minutes to sit down with us and introduce yourself, your company to us. So those events are coming up in the month of June. As always, we do have a survey out there, so that's the link to the Survey Monkey. I'd like to hear from you. Tell me what I can do differently or better to help you get the information you need so you can make the decisions you need to support us. Next slide. As previously mentioned, I try to provide the schedule. It's pretty standard, and other than the one-time exception for this today, we'll be back on schedule in July. But any time that we can't meet the schedule, we will notify you in advance so you will know. But I will include the schedule in the announcement so that you can see what we are planning for the fiscal year. Next slide. Before we move on to the executing division, I want to again lay out the format for this segment of the call. For those of you who have attended the calls in the past, you know that we would like to highlight the change from one quarter to the next in red font. So the presenter will kind of highlight that to you, or you can see that visually. But we also organize our requirements by the division and then on a sub-level by the associate chief supporting those offices. That breakdown will give you a little more insight as to who's supporting what and help you in networking around at least the Office of Contracting and trying to get answers. So there are 6 associate chiefs for each division. So we have 12 subdivisions here, and we will go through their portfolios. So the format is that the associate chief or whoever's presenting for the division will present that group. If there's any requirements to brief, they will go over it. If not, we would just stop at the end of that segment and see if there's any questions about that group. And our typical format is to entertain any questions submitted in advance. As we did with the previous guests, we will take any questions in the chat box and then also encourage you to raise your hand and ask your questions directly. But once we move on from that associate chief group, we would not go back. We would just capture your questions and answer them post-call. So feel free to drop any questions in the chat box, and we will get an answer for you. Okay, so with that, I want to now turn it over to Josh Clemens, who will brief the operation division. Josh, you ready?
I am. Hello, everyone. My name is Joshua Clemens, and I'm a contract specialist with the Operations Division. I'll be briefing the APFS slides and highlighting some of the main changes from our last industry day. For your convenience, the changes are in red. If all the information is in red, then this is a new procurement. Our first slide identifies our customers and types of acquisitions, as well as identifying our contracting officers, with James Thomason as our newest addition. Next slide, please. We had an RFI posted on 4/2 for the assessment of internal controls on SAM.gov. Next slide, please. The first team we'll take a look at is Eric Bishop's team. Next slide, please. This is for Business Analysis Support Services. The procurement will be used to obtain professional services for the Chief Data Officer with a release date of 6/1 and is an 8A direct award. Next slide, please. The solicitation for the Data Strategy Support Services was closed on 4/19, and the venue rental for naturalization ceremony is currently under evaluation. Next slide, please. Do we have any questions for Eric Bishop's team?
And again, if you want to ask a question directly, raise your hand and we'll take you off mute. Otherwise, post your question in the chat box. We just give you a few seconds to see if we have any questions. Look like we have one question. The question reads, for the Business Analyst Support Services, which is an 8A direct award, have you chosen a vendor?
We have not chosen a I believe that Dean Segay can answer that question.
Mike, Dean has his hand up.
Dean, your
Hi.
mic should be active.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Dean Segay. I'm the contract specialist, contracting officer. I have not chosen the vendor. I will release the name of the vendor after I negotiate the contract. So as of right now, I can't name the vendor yet. Thanks.
But Dean, we have identified a potential vendor. Is that correct?
Yes, we have identified the vendor. I have not solicited. I have not negotiated the contract. So until after I successfully negotiate the contract, then I can name the vendor.
Okay, thank you, Dean.
Thanks. Mm-hmm.
Are there any more questions about this branch? There's a question here that we're going to defer that to later. I think that's a general question and not specific to this particular division. So if you bear with us, we'll definitely answer your question. With that, we'll move on. You're mute.
Thank you, I appreciate it. The next team we'll take a look at is Rex Steve's team. Next slide, please. The first solicitation we'll look at is Rayo Visa Services, which will be released tomorrow on 4/24 and is a small business set-aside. Next slide, please. Information Support Strategy and Design Services. This procurement is to provide user support for Rayo and USCIS systems with a release date of 7/22 and will be an 8A direct award. Next slide, please. Shelving Support Western Forum Center. This procurement will increase shelving in Mount Clair, California, with a release date of 4/29. Next slide, please. Government Approved Africa Housing. This procurement will be used to provide sanitary and secure living quarters throughout different areas of Africa with a release date of 5/15. Next slide, please. The top two solicitations for interpreter services close on April 19th. We also have 2 awarded solicitations for recruitment, placement, and support for summer technology and digital mail meters. Next slide, please. Are there any questions for Rex Steve's team?
And again, if you have a question, you can put it in the chat box or raise your hand. Okay, all right, let's continue.
All right, next slide, please. The next team we'll take a look at is Victor Martin's team. Next slide, please. This is for the notice mailing systems. This procurement is for hardware inserters and maintenance agreements in Kentucky, Vermont, and California with a release date of 5/21. Next slide, please. Part of personalization system technology refreshment with a release date of 5/2. Next slide, please. Security maintenance repair with a release date of 5/9. Next slide, please. We have a solicitation that closed on 4/12 for the PAX 3 on SAM.gov. Next slide, please. Do we have any questions for Victor Martin's team? If there's no questions, we'll move on to the next slide. The next team we'll discuss is Stuart Seller's team. Next slide, please. My E-Verify ID validation queries. This procurement is to obtain Experian ID validations with a release date of 5/1 and will be unrestricted. Next slide, please. We have two solicitations that move to evaluation phase, which are Falcon and ES. Next slide, please. Do we have any questions for Stuart Seller's team? I don't see any hands raised or any questions in the chat, so we'll move on to the next slide, please. This is for Mary Sheeney's team. Next slide, please. Assessment of internal controls. This procurement will support the test of design and operating effectiveness with a release date of 5/15. Next slide, please. Automated government purchase card approval system with a release date of 5/24. Next slide, please. Budget support services. This will be used for analysis support associated with revenue costs and budget with a release date of 7/27 and will be an 8A direct award. Next slide, please. Business process analysis leading to integrated technology solutions with a release date of 5/3 and will be an 8A direct award. Next slide, please. Program evaluation of the E-Verify Next Gen system. This solicitation was released yesterday on 4/22 and is a small business set-aside. Next slide, please. USCIS Section 508 compliance testing. This requirement is to initiate and complete all activities related to compliance testing with a release date of 9/15 and will be an 8A direct award. Next slide, please. We have two solicitations in evaluation for CFO Integrated Support Services and USCIS Learning Management Systems. Next slide, please. Are there any questions for Mary Sheeney's team?
Josh, we do have one question in the chat. It says, what is the contract vehicle for business process analysis leading to integrated technology solutions?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
All right, thank you. So the business process analysis leading to integrated technology solutions is a potential what we call a bridge contract. So the current incumbent is MK2. Their contract is ending, and what this contract will be is a potential bridge until the CFO Integrated Financial Services contract can be awarded and released. It is currently being in evaluation phase right now. There is a possibility we will not need this bridge contract if the follow-on contract is awarded in time. But this is just some advanced planning in the event that it is needed. And because this work is in the 8A portfolio, an 8A vendor has tentatively been selected for this in the event that we execute.
Thank you, Mary. Another question is, have you picked up a vendor for budgetary support services opportunity?
Budgetary support services is also in the 8A program, and we have tentatively selected a vendor for that as well.
Thank you. There's a general question that says, there seems to be numerous 8A direct awards. How does an 8A with relevant skills get on USCIS's radar to have a chance of a direct award in the future? So this is a question I can answer. So we often have 8A companies reach out to myself as the small business specialist, Heather, Mike, and just kind of express an interest in working with USCIS, tell us a little bit about what your capabilities are, and then we work to try to connect you with program offices that you might want to engage with. Another great approach would be to keep an eye out on APFS, and we try to publicize upcoming requirements as early as possible. So, if you see something coming up where we have a requirement that's already in the 8A program or where we're considering the 8A program, we highly encourage you to reach out to those points of contact listed and, express your interest and go from there. So another question, overall, how does USCIS determine which opportunities are awarded as 8A direct awards through formal market research or other? So that's a great question. So that's all part of our market research. As Mary indicated for some of these other requirements, once we have something that's in the 8A program, it is more than likely going to stay in the 8A program. So that is a key piece of our decision-making of the contracting officers. Yes, and then, through other market research, if we identify an 8A and the requirement is below that competitive threshold, then that's when we may consider an 8A direct award. I don't see any other questions in the chat for now, so if you want to continue moving through the slides.
The next team we'll take a look at is Belinda Wood's team. Next slide, please. This is for the RAO Language and Interpretation Support Services with a release date of 8/1. Next slide, please. DHS Reverse Auction Tools. The reverse auction tool is used to assist DHS buyers in the procurement process with a release date of 9/26. Next slide, please. USCIS Sacramento Field Office Sign Language Services. This is for the USCIS Sacramento Field Office Sign Language Services with the last-minute update on the solicitation release date. It has changed from 4/11 to 5/29 and will be a small business set-aside. Next slide, please. USCIS Sign Language Interpretation Services for Los Angeles Field Office with a release date of 5/24 and will also be a small business set-aside. Next slide, please. We have one solicitation awarded for EEO counseling and investigation support. Next slide, please. Are there any questions for Belinda Wood's team? Is there any questions in the chat?
No questions in the chat.
Perfect, thank you. And then can we move to the next slide, please? Are there any questions for the slides that I have just reviewed? I don't see any questions in the chat or any raised hands. So at this point, we will be handing it over to the Technologies Division, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Josh. Great job there. And we're going to move on to the Technology Division, and we're going to bring Sarah Putman on now to present that portfolio. Good afternoon, Sarah.
Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Sarah Putnam. I'm an associate chief within the technology division, and I will be presenting the slides on behalf of the division today. So getting started, we've added one new contracting officer to our team. Susan Chamberlain joins the team supporting the applied technology division and resource management division. And Heather, you can go to the next slide. Thank you. We have two requirements that we intend to issue RFIs for. The contact center requirement is expected to have an RFI released this fiscal year in Q3. And then the EIOSS requirement is expected to have an RFI issued next fiscal year in Q2. And Heather, you can go to the next slide. Okay, we will, the following slides will be for Patrick Gadwa's team. The resources for innovation and enterprise readiness requirement, referred to as RIVER. This is going to be solicited on the GSA Mass IT vehicle as a small business set aside. The expected release date is June 3rd of this year. And it is expected to be a multiple award requirement. Next slide. The rapid application and product integration delivery requirement, also referred to as RAPID. This requirement is also going to be solicited on the GSA Mass IT vehicle, however, will be unrestricted. And the release date for this is also June 3rd of this year. And also anticipated that it will be a multiple award requirement. And we have no active solicitations or pending awards to report for this slide. Heather, we can go to the next slide.
Before we go into the next slide, we did receive a couple of advanced questions for Patrick. The first one is for Rapid. The question reads, the vendor would like to submit the following questions. Will Rapid be a single or multiple award? That's the first question there. And the second part of that question is Rapid confirmed as an unrestricted on GSA Mass under SINS 54151 Sierra?
Thanks, Mike. So to answer the first question, Rapid will be will result in multiple task order awards, one solicitation with up to 2 task orders off of GSA Mass. Second question there, yes, Rapid is anticipated to go unrestricted on GSA Mass. We are still in the acquisition planning phase, so this is not final yet. I saw a few other questions in the chat, and this may get ahead of ourselves with the pre-established questions as well, but biggest news that the vendors want to hear today is that yes, we are anticipating coding challenges for both River and Rapid. That'll be in phase 2 for both acquisitions. And yes, we plan to release drafts for both of those as well.
Okay. Look like a lot of those questions are similar. We have collected the questions for both Rapid and River. We will post the Q&As on sam.gov after the call, but they just realized that most of these questions are similar, so we have similar responses we will provide after the call. So I'd like to turn it back over to Sarah.
I'm sorry, Mike, there are just a few more questions that are specific to other requirements. So there's one, if the contact center requirement on slide 54 leads to a procurement, will that be in FY25 or FY26?
I can answer that one, Danielle. That one, we'll have to check our milestones. I believe it is in FY25, but if that question is submitted via email, then we can provide a better response.
Thank you, Sarah. Not sure if you can answer this one or if we're going to follow up when we post the Q&As, but also around contact center, will this be a small business set aside?
To be determined based on market research.
Thank you. And I believe that is it for now. Oh, I'm sorry. Is there a good POC for EIOSS2?
I can also answer that one. The current POC would be our contracting officer, Gregory Schroeder, but we will have a other point of contact coming on board, joining our team that's going to be working that requirement. So as we get more into planning with that requirement and get information out there, that point of contact information will be firmed up and provided.
Thank you. And one more question for Patrick. To clarify, 2 task orders will be awarded with River?
No. So River is 4 to 5. Rapid is up to 2. I just wrote that in the chat as well.
Thank you. That's all we have in the chat for questions.
Look like someone just raised their hand.
Your mic has been unmuted.
If you have your hand raised, feel free to come off mute and ask your question. I believe you're already off mute, so go ahead.
Thanks. Will be an oral presentation for Rapid.
Sorry, can you repeat that question?
Will you have oral presentation as part of the response for Rapid?
So we're still in that acquisition planning phase, so our factors have not been finalized yet, but right now we are expecting a written submission for phase 1, some sort of corporate capability, and then phase 2 will be a coding challenge and price. Again, not finalized yet, but that is what we're anticipating.
Oh, thank you. So if I heard you correctly, so there will be 2 phases for the Rapid. And these are the different time frame as well, or was it come up at the same time?
Phase 1 will take place before phase 2. There will be an advisory down select between the phases.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Patrick, before you go, there was another question just put in the chat box. The question is USCIS still planning an industry day for River and Rapid?
At this time, we are not planning a targeted industry day for River and Rapid. With that said, we do have the June 11th day coming up pretty soon, where we will have some time to talk River and Rapid then.
Thank you, Patrick.
One more question that came in. Sorry, Sarah. One more question that came in. It says, will this be the same for River? My guess is that is pertaining to the questions around oral presentations and the phases in the down select process.
Again, we are in the acquisition planning phase, but right now I will say yes, we are anticipating the same factors for both acquisitions and same multi-phase process.
Thank you. No more questions in the chat.
All right, so these next following slides will be for the requirements on Kenneth Brumfield's team that supports the IT Field Services Division. The Information Technology User and Field Operations Support, referred to as NEON. This requirement is currently in the market research phase. A second RFI was released to SAM.gov in late March, and USCIS is planning to hold an industry day for this requirement in June. So be on the lookout on SAM.gov for updates related to that NEON 2 industry day. And then, as I mentioned, market research is still occurring, so a vehicle has not been identified yet. However, the estimated solicitation release date is April 2025. All right, and this team has no active solicitations, pending awards, or canceled requirements. Any questions for Ken's team? All right, these next slides will be for Selena Hemingsway team for the supporting the Information Security Division. And there are no requirements to report here. So is there any questions for Selena's team? Okay, and there was one requirement that was actually canceled, the Program Management Office Services and Applications and Workload Pillar Services. This was no longer needed by USCIS and was canceled. These next slides will be for Jonathan Latson's team, supporting the Identity Records and National Security Division and Transformation Delivery Division. The Outcome-Based Delivery and DevOps Services 4 requirement, referred to as ODOS. The USCIS team is currently in market research for this requirement. An RFI was released and it has since closed. Those responses are currently being reviewed. And as of today, the vehicle and set-aside status has not been determined. However, this solicitation is expected to be released mid-October of 2024. And no active solicitations or pending awards or canceled requirements for this team. When I go to the next slide. All right. Any questions for Jonathan's team?
Hi, Sarah. We have a question. Will there be an industry day and or draft RFP for ODOS released?
Yeah, so right now we don't contemplate an industry day, but there will be a draft RFP that will go out. Right now we're forecasting end of August for that draft.
Thank you, Jonathan. And will ODOS be multiple awards?
Yeah, we do contemplate multiple awards. We have not determined or finalized the vehicle yet. We're just sort of going through the market research information now. So we should have that by the industry day for the folks in this call.
Thank you. I do not see any more questions in the chat.
All right, these next slides will be for Shauna Pendleton's team, supporting the Applied Technology Division and the Resource Management Division. The Business Process and Automation, formerly known as Document Digitization and Automation requirement. This is a professional support services, and this requirement is intended for GSA STARS 3 as a competitive 8A. And the anticipated solicitation release date for this requirement is June 22nd, 2024. The External Affairs Directorate Customer Service Accounts and Integration requirement. This again is a professional IT services requirement, and this is another competitive 8A. Currently, the vehicle has not been determined. However, as this information becomes finalized, it will be the record will be updated. And the anticipated solicitation release date for this requirement is June 26, 2024. And no additional active solicitations or pending awards or canceled requirements for this team. All right, the Microsoft Tool Optimization Services requirement. This is expected to be solicited on STARS 3 as a competitive 8A as well. The anticipated solicitation release date for this requirement is June 30th, 2024. Any questions for the requirements under Shauna's team?
No questions in the chat, Sarah.
All right, perfect. Last but not least, this is my team, the Enterprise Infrastructure Division. The Architecture and Engineering AES requirement. We recently released another draft PWS for this requirement near the end of March. And the intent is to solicit this under Alliant 2. And the anticipated solicitation release date for this requirement is July 6, 2024. Any questions related to AES?
None in the chat.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. Next slide, please. So we will capture all questions that was submitted in the chat box. But if you have any general overall questions, we would like to try to answer those right now if we can. If not, we will seek an answer and post that also with the Q&As. So are there any questions of a general nature? Okay. I don't see any questions in the chat box. I don't see any hands raised. Okay, next slide. Then in closing, first I want to thank you all for joining us today. We hope that this transition from one platform to Microsoft Teams webinar hasn't been too challenging for us, and we are still able to provide you with good information. As I mentioned earlier, we will try to work out the bugs to make this a good experience for everyone. So with that said, again, remaining schedule for FY24, the next call will be on the July 30th. And again, that information will be posted in sam.gov. Next slide. That's it. So thank you again. And we will try to get this recording posted on YouTube as soon as we can. And we'll update sam.gov announcement with these slides and the Q&A as soon as possible. Thank you for joining us today.